Hey you guys, Scoot Malaire here. Today I want to come to you guys with something just a little bit different. I want to tell you guys about 3 things in my life that I have taught myself and some of the benefits of kind of teaching yourself how to do things and the lasting effects that come from being a self-teacher, I guess. I don't know. And I'm going to do it a little differently in that I'm going to go in reverse order. I'm going to go from most recent back to oldest in the order that these 3 things came up in my life that I taught myself how to do. Okay? Now, the first one is teaching myself how to edit videos. And I know this might seem like a little thing, but until you go out and actually try to sit down with editing software and figure it out and how to cut this and splice that and insert this and render this and all these different things that I had no idea how to do, it's kind of daunting. But I had asked a few questions of different people in my life that do know how to edit that helped a little bit along the way. But for the most part, I have sat down and taught myself how to edit. I no longer have to wait for somebody else to help me do something. And that's a big part of teaching yourself things, particularly when they help make you more self-sufficient. It's extremely rewarding because then you're not depending on other people or waiting on other people. Okay? And I'm really looking forward to editing a whole lot more stuff and sharing with you guys because I've done a lot of traveling and I think a lot of interesting things have happened to me over the years. And I have so many pictures and videos of the things that have happened, particularly since the smartphones have been developed. And I've been taking pictures and videos ever since I got one. And I've got a lot of different things I'd like to share with you guys, especially in looking forward to showing you pictures and videos of a lot of the people I met and a lot of the things that happened along the way. The second thing that I taught myself how to do was to play poker. Not just any poker, tournament poker. You see, when the fad of online poker really grew in America in the early 2000s, 2005, 2008, 2010, somewhere in there, a guy online, if I remember correct, his name was Chris Moneymaker, won his way into the World Series of Poker by playing online poker, and then he went on and won the World Series of Poker. And this just caught on so big in not just the poker community, but in the general public, because ESPN was showing the tournaments on the sports channel, and so many people got into poker and then found out that they could play online, and it just started this huge thing. Well, a bunch of friends of mine and I decided to start playing poker, and it was really the first time I had ever played poker, but I was really interested, not in playing so much the cash games of poker. It just hurt a little too much to lose money and keep dipping into my wallet. But the concept of everybody putting up $20 and everybody getting the same amount of chips and the bets keep getting raised and raised, the concept of trying to be the last man standing, the last one that still had chips at the end that won the tournament really interested me. And then I found out that in addition to No Limit Hold'em, which is a very volatile game, there are a couple of other games that were played as well, and one of them was called Omaha High-Low. Now, without getting too technical, Omaha High-Low is like Hold'em, but instead of having 2 starting cards, you have 4. And some hands actually have a split pot where half the money goes to whoever has the best hand and half goes to whoever has the lowest hand. But not necessarily every round of cards that's played on the table has a high and a low winner. So it's really a very technical game. It's very numbers driven. And I'm really kind of good at that sort of stuff. But while everybody else was playing Hold'em, I actually won a couple of these smaller tournaments that we played in my brother's garage, took some of that money and opened an online account, which is where I found out about Omaha High-Low when I was looking around for different games. After losing for a little while, but watching a lot of it, I learned how to play it. And I learned little systems, little tricks, and little techniques that really work. And I actually got to where I was becoming pretty profitable at Omaha High-Low on a very small level. You know, I would play in $1, $2, and $5 tournaments, and I would grind away and grind away. And after doing this for just a few months, coincidentally, my wife and I were going on a trip to Las Vegas. And it was really the first time we had ever gone to Las Vegas on our own. We got the idea because 3 or 4 years before, after my grandmother passed away, she left some money and wanted the family to go on a trip. And the family decided we were going to go to Las Vegas. And we had so much fun there with the family that now we were going to go back, but we were going back very low budget because that's just kind of who we are. But anyhow, once we got out to Las Vegas, I found that there was an Omaha High-Low tournament that cost $90 to get into. And I went to this tournament. It was at the Orleans Casino. There were about 100 people in this tournament, and I beat them all. And it was so cool because actually when I got down to the final table, there were 3 of us left, and the 2 guys I were playing against were dealers that worked at a different casino. These were card dealers, and they talked to each other, and they said, hey, do you want to split this 3 ways? And they're like, nah, we can just get this down to me and you, and then we'll talk. And it was really kind of cool because then I just buried these two guys, won the tournament, and paid $1,300. And that changed the trajectory of the rest of our trip there in Vegas. We got to see shows we wouldn't have seen. It was a Cirque du Soleil show at the time, particularly, that had just come out, and we were able to see it. We ate at the Bellagio that we probably wouldn't have eaten at otherwise, the buffet they had, which if you've never tried, you've got to try it at least once in your life. But what was neat for me was I had that confidence now in this Omaha high-low, and I went back home, and until our government made online poker illegal, for about the next 5 or 6 years, I would just grind out at night playing Omaha high-low after a day of work while my wife, who worked the overnight shift, was off at work. I was being Mr. Good Dad in the room next door to where my kids were at, just sitting there playing online poker and grinding away and grinding away. And I made between about $4,000 and $7,000 for, I think, 5 straight years. And a couple of those years, we took the winnings and I went out to Las Vegas and actually played in the World Series of Poker, the Omaha high-low tournaments. Now, I went 4 straight years and played in this tournament, and I always did it with money that I had won online. And twice I actually made it through the entire first day of the tournament and was still alive on the morning of the second day. But none of those times did I cash. So I got to go on the record. I haven't really hit that big one yet, but who knows? Maybe there will be another day that I'm able to have that opportunity. And the third thing that I taught myself how to do came much, much earlier. And really, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. But the third thing I learned how to do was to teach myself how to type. It's funny because now everybody knows how to type, but back then it wasn't quite so simple. But anyhow, to go back and explain this, I have to explain, for starters, if you haven't seen any of my other videos yet, you might not know this, but I come from an absolutely amazing family. And when my grandfather was sick and had issues with his kidneys, our house was much closer to the hospital than my grandmother's and grandfather's house was. So my grandmother and my aunt came to stay with us for a while, which meant giving up my room. And my room was covered with album covers from Rush. And I had actually painted in big block letters, Rush, my favorite band, and exactly from the album cover from their first album. And I had just got done painting it, which was a big thing for me at 13 or 14 years old, being allowed to paint something on the wall of my room. And then I found out that Grandma and Aunt Esther were going to end up taking over my room, and I was going to have to get displaced and sleep in the front of the house for a while until things got better with Grandpa, which had its ups and downs. I really missed my room, but it was kind of cool being closer to the refrigerator and seeing as people came and went and left the house each day and all this different stuff. So it was what it was. Now, at the time, I didn't know it, but after this was all going to be done at the hospital, it was kind of becoming understood that Grandma and Grandpa wouldn't be able to live on their own anymore. I don't think that the adults knew where they were going to move to or what was going to happen next if Grandpa got out of the hospital. But gradually what I saw was that more and more of the more permanent things from their house were gradually making appearances at our house. And it wasn't just because these were things that Grandma or Aunt Esther needed. When they went to their house to pick something up, they'd bring other things back, like a blender or like a small garbage can or different little things that didn't normally go along with people. And one of these things were a typewriter. And my grandmother was a librarian for years, so not only did she have an old typewriter that looked like it hadn't been used in quite a long time, but she also had a book that taught people how to type. And that book was placed on top of the typewriter when it was pushed over in the corner of our dining room as we were running out of room around the house for other things with these two new inhabitants, of course. So anyhow, I saw the typewriter over there, and I still had my Rush albums because I brought those out with me now. So I had my record player in the front room. And I decided that I was going to teach myself how to type. You see, way back then, if you didn't know all the words to a song, you couldn't just Google it and find out the lyrics. You actually had to keep listening to the song over and over again, unless they actually happened to have the lyrics for that song in one of the magazines, these rock and roll magazines that would come out, and sometimes you get lyrics there. But certain bands actually put the lyrics of their songs on the inside of the album cover, on the sleeves of the album cover sometimes. And what I decided to do was to take Rush's lyrics, because Rush was one of those bands, and teach myself how to type using Rush's lyrics as my examples. And typing back then isn't quite the same as typing now. There was no backspace button where you could hit backspace and correct any mistake you had to make. You put paper into the typewriter, you fed it through the spool, the carriage, I guess it was called, and you typed. But if you made a mistake, a single mistake, all you could try to do was use whiteout and then try to get it back to the exact same spot on the paper. But it was practically impossible to ever get it perfect. And this was Rush. Rush was everything to me back then, so I had to get it absolutely perfect. But what was kind of neat about the typing was my grandmother took an interest in this. I come from a long line of educators. So when her grandson was trying to teach himself how to type, she kind of took an interest in it. And every once in a while, she would give me a couple of different pointers or a few different pieces of advice. But I think she really took pride in the fact that I did teach myself how to type. And she actually read through all the different song lyrics from Rush, which I have a funny feeling she probably never would have been exposed to otherwise. So anyhow, I know these days everybody can type. And there are kids in my class, almost every one of them types faster than I type. But back then, teaching yourself how to type and doing it with an old-fashioned typewriter book, and these fingers go here and these fingers go here, and you only move this finger for here and that finger for there, and really learning how to do that was a huge accomplishment for me at that age of my life. But I think what was really cool was seeing that it was something that my grandmother took pride in. And who knows? I mean, in the back of my mind, I always kind of knew I was going to be a teacher someday in my life, and maybe seeing that satisfaction from my grandmother and watching me learn how to do this might have been what planted the seed kind of early on. Either way, what I'd really like to do is have the opportunity to share other stories like this with you guys. And I got quite a few other stories like this, and truthfully, with all the traveling I've done and the experience I've had, all I've got to do is just start looking through some of these pictures and videos, and it reminds me of something else I want to tell you. So I'm one of these people that when I see a little bit of momentum going in the right direction, it makes me want to really get behind it and push it harder and faster and more. And already I'm seeing that people are interested in some of these videos, which is doing my heart a world of good. So I'll ask you again, please subscribe, like, and share for even more Scoop Malaire.